Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning, or whatever the time might be. Look, my name's Sam. This is my beautiful wife, Kiri, and this is our weekly thing, Doing Life with Sam and Kiri. We discuss topics to do with life, to do with marriage, to do with family, to do with social issues, to do with spiritual life, finance, all the things that you can think. We even did one in the gym the other week. So we endeavour to cover a broad spectrum of topics, not just a few sort of things that pertain to us, but also things that pertain to families out there. So look, thanks for tuning in. Those who've been watching over the last few weeks, cool. We endeavour to continue this on, though, into the foreseeable future. And we are definitely blessed by you tuning in. So don't forget, comment. Would appreciate if you share our life so we can impact more people or bring discussion around topics to a broader audience. And we know that through sharing the show with others, that in some way that they'll be blessed through that. So cool. Well, if you saw, the topic title was staying woke.
Stay woke.
Stay woke. Stay woke. What does that word or that phrase mean to you, honey?
Why are you looking at my lips?
Well, there's something on it, to be honest. I'm like, please, can you get it? Stay woke. Stay woke, girl.
I am. I'm woke, and I'm like, what's? Sorry.
It's gone, man. Anyway, stay woke. Stay woke. Now, this topic here. Now, to be honest, there's a few things that have prompted this for us. So, do you want to share what those? I'll share what one of them is. You share what one you posted about today. Well, one of them is that, look, we were born and raised in New Zealand. We currently live in the Gold Coast, but definitely our heart, our thinking, and also the climate and the political, I suppose, regime that's happening there does concern us. Yeah. And obviously my parents are there, our church family are there, my brothers, my sisters and brother-in-laws and whānau are there as well. And as we look at the media and we see all these different things that are happening, you can only think, gee, there's a lot of freedoms being taken, a lot of rights that have been exploited, and you know what? There needs to be some change. Yeah. And so a lot of people, I think, they can actually kind of reflect it like, oh, it's got nothing to do with me. I'm not political. But I think that statement's pretty ignorant statement, because if you say you're not political, you're basically saying I don't really care about the affairs of a nation. I don't really care about my children's future. I don't really care about the financial implications that come with a government that makes these law changes. I don't really care about my freedom and safety in my home. So if you're not political, basically you're not, I suppose, woke. You're not, caring, and you're definitely not positioning yourself to actually be someone that initiates change. I'll read one statement before I hand it to my wife, and we'll start discussing some of these things. Martin Luther King Jr., the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. True. So in other words, it's not so much all the bad atrocities that are happening. What are the good folk doing? Are they just watching these things and going, oh, that's so sad, scroll, scroll, scroll? Or are they actively standing up, speaking, or putting action to what they believe is a true conviction? So I believe in these times we've got to make moves, we've got to stand up for what's right, and we also have to make our voice known, because end of the day, when it comes to the establishment, when it comes to governments, anyone that is in power, the people's voice and the numbers and the economic power and the influence that the people have will always be bigger than that of those in power. So if we only just stood up, that table would be shaken. If we only just spoke, we would drown out and change policy and law through our unified voice. So cool.
So good. Hey everyone. I think it's a good point, like Samuel brought up, is quite often when you think about, say, a political climate or politics, as to say, a lot of us can find ourselves having quite a lot of disinterest, to be honest,
Yeah.
in politics. Like, nah, it's just a whole lot of people telling a whole bunch of lies, and it's irrelevant to me. And I think especially when I think of the church, or like the church community or Christians, is that I often hear, I've heard this is no judgment, just what I've heard and observed, is some churches and big church leaders actually say, oh no, I don't believe that the church and politics mix. Which I think is probably one of the most foolish things to think of, because if we are, in a kingdom state in terms of being Christian, and our belief system, and which is, comes from God, and obviously the morals and the beliefs and the truths that we uphold in our convictions don't make a stand when it comes to, say, politics, or actually let our voice be heard, then like that quote from Martin Luther King Jr. is, we just silence our voice. So basically we just say, do whatever you want, we'll just say nothing, we'll sit here, we'll be quiet, we'll be the quiet little ones in the corner who don't say anything, which really means that, to me, it's like you're setting up your future to be put into the hands of somebody who could be totally opposed to your belief system, totally opposed and making laws and decisions that are going to completely change the course of the future, not just for you. Like, you might not be around in the next 10, 20 years, but your kids will, and your grandchildren will. And so, like Samuel mentioned, we're from New Zealand. We don't currently live in New Zealand. And I think, this is just really a good thing, because at the moment we know that, the election's coming up in New Zealand in September 19th.
That's right.
And, at the moment, the title of this live is called Stay Woke. So many people just believe what the media portray, and I'm talking on a positive side, like the Prime Minister of the time is so amazing, and look at her, and she's so great, and she's doing so much for the country, but you look at all the sneaky things that are happening.
That's right.
While everybody's in lockdown. Look at all those sneaky little kill bills that come through government when the world was in lockdown, when New Zealand was in lockdown. And this is the kind of thing you need to be like, wake up, people. Wake up and have a look at what's going on in our country. And those of us who live offshore, it doesn't mean that it doesn't impact us. I know it's easy to, from a distance, look and be like, oh, look what's happening over there. The reality is all of us have family still back home, and our future could be there. And you might be like, I'm never moving back, I'm good, I'm staying here forever, whatever. Your kids might, which means your grandchildren will be there. And in the next 10, 15, 20 years, do you want to look back and be like, I did jack.
Yeah.
I sat there and I did nothing and I said nothing, and now my kids have to live in a country that I don't even know who even owns that country, what even is that country anymore. It's not home. So, I know this is a bit like intense for you guys, but I think it is something that we want to really bring to our awareness, like, wake up.
Yep.
Wake up and have a look at where we're at. And one thing that really, as we all would have seen on Monday, there was that terrible incident in the USA where George Floyd, he was murdered by police officers who had him pinned to the ground, knee to the back of the neck, to the throat, pretty much killed him in front of public people filming and everything, which is,
really.
it's horrible, it's disgusting, but it just goes to show the morals, of people and how they think they can just treat people and get away with it. Like, it's one thing for one officer to be treating someone like that, but for the other ones just to be like, what? Like, this is, he's just doing his job. Like, and it is. I'm just going to be honest. Like, when I first seen it, when I first watched the video, it's heartbreaking. It's like outrage, anger. Well, we need to do something, and, people need to, do something, and those guys need to go to jail and blah, blah, blah. Which is true, like, justice needs to be served. But the reality is like, it made me realize that we're so reactionary when it comes to things.
It's true.
It made me realize that we wait till situations happen like this. And it's not the only one. Like, I know there was the other black man who was shot when he was taking his
A jog.
evening run.
That's right.
Like, what the heck? Just because of the colour of his skin. Just because someone assumed chase him with a gun and shoot him and kill him. Like, that's just crazy.
There's a black man, he's running. He must be doing something wrong.
Exactly. And so, you know, like, and by the way, this isn't to discuss the issue of, you know, the black people in America or anything like that, but it's just to show
Start to
us like
highlight
how
things. Yep.
people are so silent and hiding away and it's not important, it doesn't matter until situations like that and incidents like this arise, and then everybody all of a sudden wants to rise up and there's an uprising and there's an outrage and there's like, you know, like, let's stand, let's fight. But the reality is we need to be doing that now.
Yeah.
When it doesn't look like, you know, and that's the thing, is things creep in subtly, and that's what makes me think about New Zealand and where we're heading and why we need to be wake up, woken.
There's a scripture in the Bible. It speaks about, well, people go into captivity for lack of knowledge, or they have lack of vision, so they basically miss out. That's what I think about. Like, I even think about our culture, Māori culture, and sometimes we can go, oh, that's the Pākehā thing, and that's the, but we don't realise that what's happening is the Pākehā thing, or the structure that they have, is actually determining land rights, you know, some of the beautiful culture and the things that we have in place as Māori. And so the thing with that is that to be ignorant to it is actually to put ourselves in a position of captivity in our mind, yes, but in our lifestyle. And I think what we have to do is we have to be tactful in our approach and play. You have to play the game, because sometimes in order to win the game, you have to play it. It's kind of like a sprinter that's on the sideline watching a race and then going up at the end and complaining because he didn't get the gold medal. He's like, well, I want the gold medal. Well, at the end of the day, you win in the race. You didn't vote. You didn't put your case forward. You didn't take the steps necessary to get to the prize. You complain at the end, hope and saying, oh, why don't I get this? Or why didn't this happen? Or we're in this position, or poor little me. The thing with it is that we have to, enough of us have to rise up and start to speak. And it just starts firstly with dialogue, with bringing awareness. And then from that awareness, the right people start to, the seeds deposited into the right person, and they start to rise up and they start to move into what God's called them to do. And then a lot of the time, it's to help nations, it's to help communities. And you know, when you think of New Zealand, like my wife has mentioned, these kill bills, like the abortion, the literal demonic, how can I put it, foul, disgusting, murderous bloodshed of abortion is bad enough. Yet the law that they're passing, or have passed, if they passed it, is that when the baby, you know, comes out and they're doing the abortion within, because, you know, the legal term is that, you know, it's not a human in the womb and it's just a fetus or whatever they call it. But if that doesn't succeed when the baby's born or comes out, there's now the law where you can just push that baby on a, you know, on a tray into the room and just let it die painfully, gasping for air, and, you know, call it a humane act. Come on now, let's call a spade a spade. Let's be real about it. The other thing they're trying to pass is or they have passed, is the kill bill of euthanasia. That's another thing. So all these things, and the other one was the cops can run into your home at any given time. Look, some of the stuff here is crazy.
Exactly.
And then there's the 5G towers that they're passing that law, put that up too. Not to get all conspiracy, but look, it's only been 2 months. Lock us down, distract us, smoke screen us with this COVID thing. And I'm interested, like, I know it's real, and it is actually has affected a lot of people, especially internationally. But I'm yet to meet someone, and maybe you might comment. I'm just talking about ratio now, because I reckon I know 10,000 people. And I reckon those 10,000 people know thousands and thousands. It's going to equate to a multitude of people, right? But I haven't heard or seen of one that someone who has passed away from.
Or had a case.
But I can tell you now, some of the cousins, some of the brothers and sisters, suicide. I've heard of that. That's happened close. That's happened around us. And we ain't in lockdown around that. But we are around this thing called COVID-19. And so what I want to say to you is we do need to be woke. We need to actually weigh things up and measure and say, oh, hang on, this, but what about that? You know, so look, I don't know if I'm going all over the place, but just to say that there's some stuff that's going on, and you and I have to decide that whether we just sit down and just take it, or we start to make moves and we start to form. And by the way, I know a party that's amazing. That's Vision New Zealand.
Yeah.
They are very sharp. They're all about the people, wanting to see New Zealand go back to its roots of building the families and the values in the home, and also to, I suppose, bring, that thread of the gospel in there, which really is the overarching protection and blessing that
Yeah.
the foundation of God Defend New Zealand is actually built on. So,
Yeah.
look, we all, even though we might seem like we can't do much, our voice does matter. The first thing I'd put to anyone watching this is, and you might be a supporter, you might be in a church, or you might be a believer as such, but are you a voter? You know, you might be, I don't really into the voting. Look, make a change in your life. Make a decision that you're going to make your voice known, and you're going to make your vote count
Yeah.
by going to that booth and putting your vote forward. And at the end of the day, it's your choice. But look, Vision New Zealand is the one.
Sure is. You know what? Like I was just when I was reading that article about George Floyd, I seen people making comments like they treated him like an animal. It was so, you know, like they had him on the ground. It was so horrible how they were treating him. And, you know, you think about, like, say, if you want to specifically point out that officer, and you think, how could somebody, like, in their conscious mind treat somebody with such, you know, low level, like treat them so horribly and inhumane? But then when you really think about how we are being desensitized, as to say, by things like Samuel just explained. In New Zealand, they've passed the abortion law where up until full term, and then, like he said, you can, if the baby survives the abortion, you can just leave it to die. And then we wonder why people do inhumane acts when right from the leadership and the government
That's
of
right.
our countries,
That stuff's
these are the
happening.
kind of laws that they're passing that are so inhumane, that are worse than how you treat animals. Like, my husband's a hunter, and even I've done my gun license with him, and when you do that, like, there's actually laws around how you have to kill animals in a humane way, right?
Yeah.
You can't
Exactly.
brutally kill animals, yet a human
Well, part
baby
of the part
is
of the
not
course.
brutal.
Part of the course, remember, was like, if you shoot an animal, you know, for food, as we hunt for food and that. But if you shoot an animal, you have to go and make sure that, you know, it's killed humanely. Like, don't just
Yeah,
leave it to limp off
Exactly, or suffer.
in such a state. And then you got the Greenpeace folk that are, you know, staying in front of big ships and, you know, that are whaling and all that. And yeah, sure, that I don't,
Protect
you know,
the
I think
whales
it's
and-
good.
Yeah,
But really, are we
yeah. and-
protesting outside clinics? And then we look at these ones on TV like, oh, they're weirdos, and a lot of them can be portrayed as weirdos. But come on now, like,
Yeah, exactly.
we've got this thing a bit out of kilter here. We've actually become immune to it, even probably to the level that we're at, you know, because it's so, you know, prevalent.
Yeah.
It's like TV, you know, before, you know, they used to mute swear words out and certain scenes and things were cut out or they wouldn't show it. Now it's just kind of, you know.
The norm.
Yeah, it's not as restricted in that.
Yeah,
So it's-
exactly.
yeah, like
well,
my
that's
wife
what I'm
said,
saying is
it's-
like the moral consciousness is out the window.
Yeah.
So when
doesn't
you
make it
think
any less
about,
bad.
Yeah, so when I think about, like, you know, people at that high standard, or who consider themselves at their high standard in
Position,
terms of high positions of power, you've got politicians and people in government and even doctors and medical professionals who are supposedly are meant to help us, save lives. Isn't that ironic.
Yeah.
They agree upon a bill such as full-term abortion, leave the child if it's still living to die. And so that's what I'm trying to say is like, and then we have the questions to ask when an officer treats somebody so badly like an animal and go, how could he do that? I'm so disgusted by that. That's horrible. But the reality is like, that's the inhumane acts that we're seeing past with nice, collar-shirted professionals who speak articulately and they look great and their media portray them to be these amazing people who are helping our country, and we're all like, oh, yay, like that's what we're trying to say, like,
Yeah.
wake up.
It's actually
Wake up.
more humane to let them catch COVID, to be honest. When you look at the stats of abortion and suicide, some of the leading causes of death on this planet are those things. And here we are prancing and pussyfooting around this little flippin' thing called COVID-19 that is ridiculous in terms of how much impact it's having. It's probably more impact on people losing their jobs and family life and domestics
hugely
and all that.
impacted.
You're probably going to lose more folk in that manner than you are from the flippin' little germ called COVID-19. Now, you got to see that there's, it's out there. It's out of it. And on one end, they're trying to save people, as my wife said, and we're trying to keep you safe and, wash your hands and hey, get the flu shot because COVID-19. Oh, well, is it flu shot or COVID-19? Like, anyway, so there's all these different things happening, and on the other end, they just putting babies in the garbage
Foul.
can, putting babies in the rubbish. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
And you know what? You're probably
Crazy.
thinking, they're talking a lot about this abortion thing. Like, the reason
it's a hot
why
topic.
is to really help identify the moral standard. Hey, if you just stop for a moment, have a think about the moral standard of the New Zealand government, of people who are in power and leadership of New Zealand,
Yep.
and ask yourself the question, is that the type of people I want to be leading our country?
Yeah.
People who have that type of moral standard, because that's about the same moral standard as that officer who had his knee to the back of the neck of George Floyd. Same moral standard. Inhumane. Absolutely no value for life. Same moral standard.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we're trying to bring that wake up and awareness about. And even in terms of control, like the fact that you don't need a permit to enter in somebody's home because you assume or somebody tells you that something's going on in there. So what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
In 10 years from now, because my son might be hanging around with some of his friends who might be Māori, Pacific Island, and could look like drug dealers, does that mean that one day I could get a phone call in 10 years from now and say, Mum, I'm down at the police station, I'm getting interrogated because I was with my bros hanging out and someone thinks that they're selling drugs? Hey, so don't say, how's this going to affect me? What's this got to do with me? What's this got to do with us? It can be right at our doorstep, but we're all sleeping and docile and not aware of what's going on. So this is why when we talk about coming up to September 19th, the election in New Zealand, and why this is not just about a campaign and an election. Like, this is really, and I love that you brought in Martin Luther King's quote. Like, this is about civil rights. This is about moral standard. This is about where the country is heading. And you know what, Australia, we're not too far away from them. Probably not too far away from influence. And that lady's probably going to end up in the UN. Guess what? That's going to impact all our nations.
Yeah.
So let's just wake up.
Look, they use New Zealand
Come
as
on.
a guinea pig nation. They
Exactly.
test a lot of vaccines. They test a lot of marketing. They test a lot of business movie releases, stuff like that. Small product launches that it's small
5G.
enough to manage. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Let's put the first 5G tower in Mangere.
It's small enough to manage, but it's large enough to get the gauge of the people's response to such a thing. So how far can we push them? How limiting can we be upon them? I mean, that cop one where they can run into your house like under the law of COVID, but they can, I thought it was COVID. Really, they can run in and things can happen.
Do whatever
and
they
because
want.
there's a law, even like criminal things that they think, even if you're innocent or you're not, they can actually go into your house without a warrant, a search warrant. That, to me, that is hugely scary. They also wanting to bring in this hate speech law where they can just shut organisations down if they don't agree. And they also are coming into this position where they, just another bull around taking your rights if your organisation is seen to be contrary or, I don't know, but all these laws actually lead to
Control.
bigger problems and control, yes.
It's pretty
and
much just control.
taking your freedom later on down the track. So that's the other thing, is that it's not just about now, it's about later on. And if NZ goes through and all this stuff happens, then it gives strength and it gives also the concept for other countries to follow in that same vein, on that same vein. And before you know it, never mind Hitler and all this and all that and all these historic things we look at, slowly you and I have been co-hexed into these concentration camps. We've become farmed citizens. No longer are our rights and freedoms there, but now we're farmed citizens, plugged into a system that if you don't do this, if you don't put this needle in you, if you don't get this app, if you don't open up your door, if your temperature's too high with this, if your money game's not this, if you don't use this transaction method like this, come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Nonsense 10 years ago, nonsense 20 years ago, but right now, all the crazy men and all those thoughts about governmental control now is upon us.
Exactly.
So stay woke, but don't just stay woke, provoke, speak, talk about it.
Do something.
Bring up discussion. It's not about, people go, oh, he's a conspiracy person. No, sometimes it's not conspiracy, it's actually just, like, that's what it is,
awareness.
Facts. We need to be on this thing. So I'm urging everyone who's watching here, and by the way, the abortion thing, to the lady who's watching who may have done that. Look, I know people that have been taken into an office by a teacher and told, come with me for a ride, and your parents don't have to know. Bloody hell.
And we can take care of this little problem.
Now listen to this. Bloody hell. The teachers text me and say, my son, your son's absent. Or they check in on me, hey, this is happening, and such a small thing, their bag or their lunch or their shoes or, PE uniform, or his hair's been dyed blonde, it needs to be black. But you're telling me that they can't message you around, well, they but they're allowed to. They're allowed to keep it secret and not get in touch with you around your child with the potential that they could have an abortion. Now, I don't know how it is now, but I'm just telling you a factual story, which was someone close that I know around me, that was something that could have happened, and people and friends we've heard of that it has happened. And so it's not about the person who's listening here and feeling guilty about the abortion, because they know how to bring this medical terminology and discussion and talk around murder. They don't say to you, hey, do you want to murder your baby? They don't say that. But nonetheless, the outcome is the same thing. What they do is they kind of emotionally talk to you, and they actually manipulate you into numbing down the actual activity of what that is. So a lot of ladies who've been through abortions, you've been a victim. The first thing I want you to know is the guilt and shame has been removed, especially through Christ, and you don't have to live in that guilt and shame. And by no way are we condemning anyone, but we just need to know, looking forward, that people actually can see and be woke to the realness of what this actually is.
For sure. Yeah, for
Seabed, foreshore.
Let's not go there.
No.
So you know what? I think what we just wanted to share, as you can hear, is sort of a passion in terms of being aware, and we're in a position right now, New Zealand particularly, and those of us who are living offshore, but are New Zealand citizens, like we are in the position where our vote is actually our voice. We have the ability to speak up. We have the ability to make a change. We have the ability to get the right people in power, and in those positions of power and influence. And
Big
so
time.
why not? Like, the power really is in the people, guys. The power is in the people. There are millions of Kiwis, not just within New Zealand, but around the world, who have the ability to vote. So our vote really is our voice, and it is our power. And I'm not going to lie, like I was one of those people like, can't be bothered, who cares, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, tick. You know, like, honestly, it was literally, but now understanding, like, because we don't understand the terms of government and all the policies and all the legislation and what it all means
you don't
and blah,
need
blah,
to.
blah, you think that it's irrelevant to you,
Yeah.
but it's actually what's going to be determining our future. And like Sam said, is things start to get dictated to us. I remember, thank God, we're not on any kind of family assistance from the government at all, but there was a stage that we were, and I remember them getting a letter, them saying, oh, if you don't get your children immunised, we have to cut part of your family assistance. And I was like, felt like going, stuff you, tell me what to do, because that's literally how it felt. I was like, mate, I am not going to be controlled by you, like rush my kids down to the doctors to get jabbed with who knows what. And so I had made the decision that I was declining immunisation. So I said, well, take your money. I don't care. You ain't going to pay me to control me. And so that's just a little teeny weeny example of, and those of us who know and are aware, like, actually, we got that letter too. And we had to do that too. That's the reality. That's called control. But they'll fluffy it up and cotton wool it around like, no, we want to keep people safe and all this kind of drama. So that's just a little teeny weeny example. But like Sam said, soon it's going to be like, oh no, you can't pay for anything until you've got this. And then you've got this. And if that starts to impact and become morally incorrect and not what we believe in, we're in a position now where we're like, mate, we can't even go to the shop and buy something because of that. So let's not go far down the track. But I just want to share with you that, like in terms of family assistance and that, people are getting determined what they can and can't have. Parents are getting turned away from childcare centres because you must have this and you must have that. So that's just a little example of control and the power they have and the way they can manipulate things that impact us. And it can be a little bit of a, like, if you don't do this, you can't have that. And most people, unfortunately, are in a position where they need that assistance or they need whatever it is, so they'll do whatever they're told. So that's just another little example. And I guess we all know COVID over these last few months has been crazy. We're not allowed.
It's been full of crap, to be honest.
A little bit, and ridiculous. So.
Oh, mate, look. I go into the petrol station and I'm rubbing shoulders with bros and and go to Kmart and, like, come on now. Like, this thing's, it's over the top.
It's a bit ridiculous.
It's a bit, I don't know, to vent. I won't vent on this lens here, but...
we're getting a bit venty now.
We are venty.
But you know what, guys? I think that was what we mostly wanted to get on here and have a talk about. And now our big encouragement and our big challenge is to speak up, say something, do something. Don't sit around and be like, oh, look what happened over there, oh, that's sad. And and even it's all good on social media to post things and say things, but it's what you're actually standing for.
It's funny that way, because people are like, oh, this and that, and the government, oh, did you vote? Oh, no, bro. Be quiet then. See, that's the thing, like, people like to complain and chuck darts and all that, but they don't get off their button and make moves.
Yeah.
And just as we finish, like, Vision New Zealand, it's not about a God party, it's not about a church party, it's not about a destiny party, it's none of those things in terms of its greatest call, is it's this. A party that brings freedom to the people of New Zealand, a party that is a voice for the people of New Zealand, and one that wants to bring the moral compass or the moral plumb line back into the nation, so that it's not a nation that's following after all these other gods and all these other things that come in and mix and burly it all up. Look, expression and diversity of culture is a beautiful thing. But once you allow all these different religions to come in and meddle with the fabric of the nation, we have problems. And I'm here to tell you that if you want a strong voice representing you and your family or whānau, then Vision New Zealand is
Vision
the
New Zealand. Yes, and for those of you who are like, cool, how? We're going to put the link up in the comments straight after this, which is pretty much make sure you're enrolled. The first thing is enroll.
Enroll.
Make sure you're enrolled, and it's very simple. If you live offshore like us here in Australia, or anywhere in the world, but you've travelled back to New Zealand within 3 years, you're still eligible to vote. So make sure you jump on. We're going to put the link in, which is
Yep.
pretty much just vote.nz, but I'll put it up anyway. You can go on there and it'll tell you how you can
It's your
enroll.
passport.
And it'll give you that process. It's very simple. Literally takes you like a couple of minutes. You just need your passport on you.
Or license.
Fill out your information. Yeah, all your New Zealand driver's license. Fill out your information and get enrolled. Even New Zealanders. Probably a lot of you not enrolled. Enroll.
Yeah, get
Enroll
on
to
there.
vote.
Get on there.
Vision New Zealand is the one. That is us. We're going to change the game.
Change the
things up.
game.
But thank you guys for joining us for our midweek check-in. It was a bit more of a serious discussion, but very relevant.
Bit of a vent, bit of a jam, bit of a slam.
And very necessary. So, yeah. Awesome.
Stay woke, fams.
Stay woke.